They came to conquer Earth, certain that humans would panic and surrender. But humanity didn't respond with weapons, it answered with silence, and rewrote the galaxy instead. We didn't destroy the Empire, we proved we could wait. They called us deviants, because we broke the rules of the universe and survived. And then, we taught the galaxy how to listen, and how to choose. Stay with us if you want to see how the story ends, and don't forget to subscribe. High Commander Vazrich of the Galactic Hegemony stood on the bridge of his flagship, Eternal Crusher, gazing down at the blue-green sphere of Earth. His four eyes blinked in a slow, sequential pattern, a sign of irritation among the Draskan species. 3,000 years of what the hegemony liked to call peace were about to end, and the humans didn't even have the decency to look afraid. Sir, we've established communication with their Planetary Defense Council, Lieutenant Gorax announced from his console, voice sharp through the chamber's audio system. Excellent, Vazrich said, straightening his ornate war mantle. Prepare the fear speech. There was a moment of collective stillness. The fear speech was legendary, broadcast across 17 galaxies. It had caused entire civilizations to surrender before a single shot was fired. As Lieutenant Gorax began transmitting, Vazrich cleared his throat with ceremonial precision. Attention, pitiful Earth-dwellers. I am High Commander Vazrich of the Draskan Empire, Supreme Armada of the Galactic Hegemony. Your planet has been selected for immediate conquest. Your resources will be harvested. Your people will serve. Resistance is not merely futile, it is laughable. He paused to let the silence bite. He lived for this moment, the shaking, the pleading, the inevitable submission. Instead, the screen flickered, and a human appeared. Short red hair. Standard issue gray uniform. Coffee stains on the collar. She was chewing something. Hey there, Vazzy, she said, blowing a pink bubble that popped with a snap. I'm Admiral Diana Frost, Earth Defense Force. Give us a sec, would ya? We're just finishing up our lunch break. Vazrich's lower jaw dropped so far it almost dislocated. Lunch break? I have just declared total war upon your species. Frost shrugged. Yeah, got that. Pretty dramatic. Did you rehearse the voice? It had a nice, conqueror flair. Real spooky. It is not a voice. It is the terror tone of the Draskan battle lineage. Sure it is, buddy, Frost said, chewing. Anyway, can you maybe hold off for like 40 minutes? Jenkins brought donuts from this killer spot downtown. You know how it is. Commander Pix. Vazrich turned sharply. Are they mocking us? Is this psychological warfare? Pix, visibly confused, replied, Unknown, sir. Our studies indicated that humans would respond with either abject panic or frantic military posturing. Oh, we're definitely mocking you, Frost chimed in. Well, a little. But look, we've known you were coming for, what, 6 months now? Your engine signatures are about as subtle as a comet with a foghorn. Our approach was masked by the outer radiation belts, Vazrich began. Frost made a dismissive sound. Not really. Also, those big cannon-looking things on your sides, particle accelerators, right? Very intimidating. A chill ran down all three of Vazrich's spinal ridges. How could you possibly know the design of a hegemony battleship? Martinez wants to know if they're Mark V or Mark 6 models, she said, glancing off-screen. We've got a betting pool going. Absurd, he hissed. We have conquered 17,000 worlds. We wield weapons capable of cracking your planet like an egg. Neat, Frost replied. By the way, we're detecting instability in your quantum drive. Might want to have your guys look at it. Pix looked down at his display, pale. Sir, they're right. Vazrich's confidence began to fray. Impossible. You know, Vazzy, Frost said, we've actually had one of your scout ships for a while now. Crashed in the Pacific. Rookie Navigator didn't account for our moon's gravity. We've been reverse engineering bits and pieces for fun. Vazrich blinked. Stunned. Oh, and your universal translator? We patched it ourselves. The idioms should be coming through just fine. Sir, Gorax whispered urgently. Scanners show unusual energy signatures from Earth's moon. It appears to be armed. Oh, that, Frost said brightly. Yeah, we've been building. Those weapons platforms. Just the tip of the iceberg. You are bluffing. Vazrich roared. Your species has barely mastered orbital mechanics. Frost laughed, and the sound sent a pulse of unease through the bridge crew. Yeah, we kind of let everyone think that. Makes for better surprises. She took a long sip from a drink container, then looked back to the camera. So here's the deal. Option 1. You turn around, tell your bosses Earth is off limits, and we all go back to pretending to like each other. Option 2. Vazrich gulped. Option 2. We show you why threatening a species that spent most of its evolution figuring out creative ways to kill each other is not the smartest move. Commander Pix leaned in again. Sir, incoming reports. Multiple weapons locks. From the planet. From the moon. From what appear to be cloaked satellites. Even civilian stations. They can't possibly, Vazrich began. You want to bet your life on that? Frost asked, somehow having heard the whisper. Because that's what you're doing right now. Sir, Pix said, tactical analysis suggests we may be outgunned. Vazrich stared at the screen, desperation rising. This is madness. We sent you a small data packet, Frost said calmly. Consider it a preview. Coordinates received, Gorax confirmed. And then, 3 kilometers off the Eternal Crusher's port side, a brilliant white flash ignited space. When it cleared, the merciless void, a Draskin support ship with 800 crew, was gone. That, Frost said, voice cold, was one missile. From one launch platform. We have thousands. The bridge fell silent. This is an act of war, Vazrich whispered. Frost raised an eyebrow. Didn't you start with, your planet has been selected for immediate conquest? Everything he thought he knew about humans was unraveling. Perhaps, he said slowly, we should discuss terms. Now you're talking sense, Frost replied. We'll send over a diplomatic team. No more explosions for now. Sound fair, sir? Pix called out. A small vessel is approaching from Earth. It's requesting docking. They anticipated this. Vazrich murmured. How? They launched when you entered the system, Frost explained. Standard protocol. We've been paranoid for 100 years. The upside of paranoia, she smiled. Preparedness. And for the first time in his 300-year career, High Commander Vazrich felt something new. Not anger. Not pride. Fear. Because Earth hadn't just survived. It had waited. The docking tube hissed as pressure equalized between the Eternal Crusher and the incoming human diplomatic vessel. Its hull was sleek, black like obsidian, with markings that seemed to shimmer across the electromagnetic spectrum, deliberately designed to confuse hegemony scanners. Inside, 5 individuals stood at attention, each wearing crisp, minimalist uniforms devoid of medals or insignia. The leader stepped forward. Tall, calm, and visibly human, he was flanked by a Savan interpreter and a Draskin defector. High Commander Vazrich's eyes twitched as he recognized the latter, Soryek, former admiral of the 7th Suppression Fleet, thought executed for disobedience. His presence here, among humans, was an insult layered atop humiliation. This is a violation of all military protocol, Vazrich hissed as the group entered the command chamber. It's not a war anymore, sir, the human said smoothly. You had your chance. This is negotiation. You dare dictate terms aboard my vessel? The human raised one brow. We're already aboard, Commander. That tells us exactly how this conversation is going to go. Pix whispered from his station. Sir, long-range sensors confirm that 2/3 of the Earth fleet is still cloaked. They've only revealed a fraction of their firepower. Vazrich's face sagged with the weight of inevitability. Who are you? Ambassador Ryan Voss, the human replied. Appointed by the Unified Earth Council to serve as your point of contact for surrender de-escalation. You believe you've already won? Vazrich spat. Commander, Voss said, folding his hands. You arrived with the intention of enslaving our species. You assumed we were defenseless. That assumption cost you 1 warship and 5 support craft in under 3 minutes. The only reason you're still breathing is because we haven't yet decided how many ships we want you to keep. Behind him, Sir Yek stepped forward. He's telling the truth, Vazrich. I defected because I saw the future, and it doesn't belong to the hegemony. You traitor. I watched humans reverse engineer our singularity engines in half the time it took us to design them. I watched them refuse to deploy weapons that could have burned entire continents, just because they wanted us to understand that they could. That's not weakness. That's civilization. The silence was deafening. I don't understand, Vazrich finally muttered. We've monitored you for centuries. Primitive cultures. Fragmented societies. Even your own history is violent. Ryan Voss nodded. True, but you misunderstood what that meant. You thought our violence was a sign of weakness. He leaned closer. It was training. Vazrich's eyes narrowed. What do you want from us? 2 things, Voss said. First, withdrawal. Total and unconditional. Not just from Earth, but from all developing worlds. Your age of conquest is over. And the second? Assistance, Voss said without hesitation. You have 3,000 years of data, engineering, and social experiments. We want access. And in exchange, we offer the one thing you've never been able to engineer. Which is redemption. It was such a human word. Messy, sentimental, but delivered with a sharp undertone of inevitability. Like all their best weapons. Vazrich sat in stunned silence as the diplomatic party exited the bridge. Only Sor Yek lingered. We will never serve you, the commander growled. Yek smiled. That's the thing. They don't want you to serve. They want you to learn. He followed the others. And the door sealed shut. On Earth, celebrations did not erupt. There were no fireworks, no monuments. Instead, the victory was logged, reviewed, and filed. Because it wasn't over. Max Reed sat in a silent meeting room deep beneath the Andes Defense Complex, speaking with global security analysts and planetary infrastructure coordinators. They'll come again, one strategist said. Not the Draskin. Others. Maybe worse. They will, Max replied. So what's next? We go quiet, he said. Let them underestimate us again. He turned to the central display, a star map slowly being populated with systems marked potential threat and observation only. And we build, he added. In orbit, Earth's new command satellites blinked silently against the void. Each carried a segment of the global defense net, autonomous, adaptive, impossible to disable from outside. Admiral Frost watched from the deck of Solstice 1, a new generation ship built entirely after the failed invasion. She sipped coffee, actual coffee, not synthesized, and nodded to her tactical officer. Any sign of retaliation? Nothing yet. Scanners indicate the Drazkin fleet has rerouted toward deep space. No distress beacons. No revenge strikes. Just silence. Frost smiled faintly. That's louder than a declaration. She stood, looking out at the stars. They know now? Earth isn't prey. We're the predator that learned how to wait. Below her, on the dark side of the moon, engineers worked in silence on an array so large it could never be built on Earth's surface. Deep-bore power generators hummed. Arrays of crystal-fused alloy angled toward the stars. Not a weapon. A mirror. Something old. Something human. Preparedness wasn't about being the strongest. It was about being ready before anyone else realized the rules had changed. And the rules had changed. 6 months after the Drazkin withdrawal, a quiet equilibrium settled over the galaxy. Not peace, exactly, but pause. The kind that comes after something colossal has shifted and no one yet knows what fills the vacuum. The galactic hegemony's core worlds entered political crisis. Factions fractured. Supply lines withered. Economies once built on exploitation now flailed to redefine purpose. Some tried to frame the Earth incident as an aberration, a fluke, a rare case of overreaching a highly reactive species. But the truth was already spreading, not through official channels, but through rumor, through the silent code exchange between captains of distant fleets and station officers running late-night diagnostics. The truth was whispered across the stars. Humans didn't win by surprise. They won because they waited. That shook the old order more than any fleet ever could. On Earth, the shift was subtle but visible. Public discourse was no longer about if aliens existed, but how many are watching now. Recruitment to the Defense Corps soared. New programs emerged. Linguistics aimed at unknown languages, xenopsychology crash courses for students barely out of primary school. In Geneva, the Unified Earth Council met with the Confederated Colonial Accord, a body made up of human colonies that had long pushed for deeper involvement in defense matters. The colonies had not suffered during the invasion. They had listened. And now they demanded more than protection. They wanted participation. Amara Jackson presided over the council chamber, her presence calm, deliberate. She no longer needed to raise her voice. Earth's victory had bought her authority that could not be legislated. You want a seat at the command table? She asked the colonial envoy. Yes, replied Governor Way Allery of the Mars Coalition. We want direct integration into the Earth Defense Network. No more lagging behind. We helped build the fallback infrastructure. We hid your signal arrays. We launched the decoy drones that scrambled the Drazkin. You also refused to share your AI cores 2 years ago, Amara noted. We didn't flinch. We've all changed since then. Amara leaned forward. Good. Because we're no longer preparing for war. We're preparing for contact. A murmur filled the chamber. Not all species that watch us will be hostile, she continued. But all of them will judge us. Our unity, our discipline, our ability to restrain ourselves in the face of temptation. And our ability to strike, if pushed, Way added. Amara met his eyes. Especially that. Outside the chamber, Commander Raj Venkataran, now Supreme Director of Strategic Infrastructure, coordinated with Orbital Command. How many satellites are fully AI autonomous? He asked the technician beside him. 72%, sir. The rest are pending final alignment with the new Sentience Compliance Protocol. And the mirror? Fully online. Power draw stable. Reaction latency under 1.3 milliseconds. Raj nodded. Maintain lunar shadow ops. Don't bring it into full view yet. Yes, sir. Meanwhile, in a distant star cluster known as Halvax Reach, a small exploratory vessel registered an anomaly. The crew, mixed species archaeologists from the neutral Herald Confederation, were charting stellar ruins when they intercepted a repeating subspace signal. Encoded in an ancient mathematical prime format. The signal was simple. It read, "We are ready." Not in any known language. But the structure, the cadence, the harmonic fingerprint, it matched humanity's last public broadcast. A message sent out 2 weeks after the Drazkin withdrawal. Earth has survived. Earth is listening. Earth will answer. The origin of the response? Unknown. But nearby ruins bore signs of ancient habitation and genetic traces. Human. Older than any colony. Older than Earth itself. The data was forwarded quietly to Earth Command. Admiral Frost reviewed the logs from her chair aboard Solstice 1. She sat in silence for nearly 20 minutes, looping through the harmonic signatures. She finally whispered, "They're not answering us. They're answering the message." Max Reed joined the call via secure relay. "What do you mean?" Frost turned her screen, sending a map of ancient Earth mythologies layered over known deep space signals and historical contact patterns. One symbol appeared again and again, in earth carvings, in ruins found on distant moons, in the rhythmic pulses of the Draskin core. A spiral inside a spiral. Someone planted the idea of Earth's rise, she said, long before we were ready to hear it. Max's silence was telling. Finally, he said, so the Draskin were just the first to trip the alarm. And now, Frost added, the old ones are watching. In a vault beneath the Pacific Ocean, where no satellite could reach and no probe could trace, Earth's deepest archive was sealed beneath kilometers of reinforced alloy and acoustic shielding. They called it Facility Zero, and even most council members didn't know its precise location. But Admiral Frost did, and she had just arrived. The vault doors opened only after simultaneous biometric confirmation from both Frost and Max Reed, who accompanied her. No one entered Facility Zero alone. Not because of threat, but because of what lay inside, the precursor records. Recovered during the early days of Earth's secret ascension, they were fragments, devices found buried in asteroids, etched on magnetic strata beneath Arctic ice, woven into ancient texts dismissed as mythology. The conclusion, confirmed by generations of researchers under strict silence, was clear. Humanity had been visited before, and not only visited, shaped. Inside the central chamber, a projection blinked to life. Amara Jackson appeared via secure hololink. Report, she said. Frost stepped forward. The signal from Halvax Reach is not alien. It's not even new. It's a ping, a response to an ancient precursor broadcast. One of the patterns we've been decoding here for 20 years. Amara's voice was razor-sharp. So we've been heard? Frost shook her head. Worse. We've been seen. Something was waiting for us to reach this level of coordination, of power, of post-survival clarity. And when we sent that message after the Draskin incident, it was the final check. Reed spoke next. Then we've passed the test. Or triggered the next one, Frost muttered. Behind them, the decoded section of the precursor archive began to unfurl. A spiral pattern, fractal, recursive, growing outward with each new layer. At the heart, Earth's position. Surrounding it, dozens of coordinates. Most were uninhabitable. A few were unknown. But two had already been confirmed as sites of recent alien activity. One had even been visited by Draskin scouts, then redacted from all hegemony maps. Amara leaned in through the hollow. Do we make contact? Max replied instantly. Not yet. We observe. Quietly. We learn who else is watching. In orbit, aboard Solstice 1, Frost returned to the bridge. Deploy Sentinel Array Delta 7, she ordered. Full passive sweep. No active pinging. Her officers obeyed without hesitation. They had learned long ago that Frost never spoke in hypotheticals. If she said someone was watching, someone was. The array launched tiny satellites no larger than a football, each carrying a self-contained AI and zero-emission signal array. They spread outward like seeds, drifting on gravitic eddies, listening to every corner of the system. Within 24 hours, one of them picked up something. A particle disturbance on the Kuiper Belt's outer edge, not a ship. A shadow. Moving between gravity wells with impossible precision. Track it, Frost ordered. They did. But within seconds, the shadow blinked out, then reappeared inside Jupiter's orbit. It just moved across hundreds of AU in less than a second, the tech whispered. There's no signature. No trace. No. The comms channel crackled. A voice, calm, synthetic, with no linguistic origin, spoke. Your pattern is complete. The observers are coming. And then silence. No repeat. No signal source. Just the message, now burned into the communications log. At the Unified Earth Council, the message played on repeat. Every faction heard it. Every colony listened. Even Plex Tvoro, liaison of the now-defunct hegemony, stood in the corner with his arms folded, visibly disturbed. This isn't the Draskin, he said quietly. This isn't even like the precursors. This is older. Bigger. Cleaner. Define observers, Amara said, staring at the signal. No need for ships, Plex replied. No need for weapons. They don't conquer. They classify. And if they decide a civilization is unworthy. He didn't finish. Because he didn't have to. Everyone in the chamber understood. In hidden war rooms and bunkers across the planet, Earth mobilized again, but differently. No mass military movement. No orbital launches. Just precision. Quiet upgrades to deep code defense grids. Hidden quantum triggers embedded into infrastructure nodes. Satellite systems rerouted to focus on stealth, not power. A new protocol was activated. Odin Directive. Its only purpose? To prove we belong. Not through war, but through resilience. And as Earth prepared, other civilizations watched. Some sent ambassadors. Others sent spies. But a few, those who had existed long before empires rose and fell, did something else. They sent silence. Deep, dark silence. And somewhere, in the cold between stars, a presence began to turn its gaze towards Sol. Not with anger. Not with curiosity. But with calculation. Because the test was never about survival. It was about what we'd do next. The Odin Directive spread through humanity's defense web like a silent heartbeat, synchronizing black site systems, deep learning threat prediction models, and old-world infrastructure previously considered obsolete. It wasn't just military, it was cultural, philosophical, psychological. Because Earth had learned that war was not always declared with weapons. Sometimes, it was observed. In orbit, Solstice 1 entered absolute stealth. It drifted without propulsion, broadcasting nothing, absorbing starlight rather than reflecting it. On board, Admiral Frost walked the halls with the weight of history pressing down on every decision she made. In the command briefing, Raj stood before a projection showing the spread of anomalous particle behavior across the solar system, subtle, mathematical, almost artistic in structure. They're testing our reactions, he said. Each anomaly is followed by a mirrored one in another part of the system, as if they're studying our comprehension. They want to see if we understand the pattern, Frost murmured. Max Reed, patched in from the Andean defense node, added, and if we fail? Frost didn't blink. Then we become a footnote. Amara Jackson, watching quietly via secure line, finally spoke. We need to move forward before they make their decision for us. What's the status on Project Echo? Raj took a breath. Ready for deployment. But once we activate it, there's no going back. It will tell the galaxy that Earth doesn't just exist, it remembers. Good, Amara said. Let them remember with us. Project Echo was humanity's most ambitious endeavor since its unification, not a weapon, but a record. A distributed memory net, laced into every comms relay, every orbital buoy, every data vault on every colony. It didn't broadcast strength. It broadcast story. The wars, the triumphs, the failures, the moments of cruelty and the moments of grace. The archive of humanity, not whitewashed, not cleansed. True. And the moment Echo was activated, it was heard. Every listening post across known space reported the same event, a harmonic resonance that caused sensor drift for exactly 7.13 seconds, long enough for every core processor to momentarily align with Earth's broadcast frequency. And then the response came. From nowhere. From everywhere. A signal, not sound, but pressure in data space. As if the void had just breathed inward. One word emerged in the transmission logs, translated across every language the Confederacy knew. Noted. Just that. But with it came the shift. The anomaly stopped. The shadows vanished. And then, one by one, new signals began to arrive. They were ancient in format. Protocols not used for millennia. Languages from worlds no longer on any map. But they all carried the same intention. We see you. We have not forgotten. May we speak. Earth's diplomatic corps exploded into motion. For the first time, humanity found itself at the center of galactic conversation, not because of wealth or numbers, but because it had passed a test no one had dared speak of aloud. The observers had shifted from watching to listening. In the underground vaults of Facility Zero, Amara and Frost met in person, surrounded by holograms of the precursor spiral. We triggered something, Frost said. Something that predates even memory. We didn't trigger it, Amara replied. We earned its attention. What now? We build. She turned toward the spiral, its arms now illuminated with new coordinates. Locations just lit up in the network. Worlds unknown, civilizations long silent, all beginning to respond to Echo's pulse. We become what they feared we'd never be, Amara said. A species that knows how to wield power and chooses when not to. Among the new worlds revealed, one stood out. A system buried in a dark nebula, shielded by gravimetric distortion. The observers had left a message there, a beacon encoded in precursor math, waiting for a species ready to find it. Earth was ready. Solstice 1 led the expedition, a fleet of science vessels, linguists, even artists. No weapons raised, no defenses primed. And at the heart of the nebula, they found the impossible. A city, empty but alive. A monument built not by hands, but by thought, pulsing with energy that resonated in perfect harmony with human brain patterns. Inside its core, a final message. You were not made to serve. You were made to choose. And then silence. But it was the silence of approval, of opportunity. Earth returned changed. Not by conquest, not by war, but by acknowledgement. In the halls of the Confederacy, protocols were rewritten. In the colonies, new oaths were sworn, not of loyalty to Earth, but of loyalty to truth. And in the void, beyond reach and comprehension, the observers watched. Still unseen, still silent, but no longer judging, only waiting. Because humanity had spoken, and the galaxy had answered. The galactic landscape, once ruled by fear and held together by brittle alliances, began to bend towards something new. Not peace, not yet, but gravity. A gravity centered on Earth, on humanity, not because it demanded submission, but because it had earned recognition. The Confederacy, still fragile, now anchored itself around Earth's example. Old powers reluctantly accepted human mediators into territorial disputes. Colonies once isolated by suspicion began to reach out, not because they were forced, but because the old empires no longer knew how to lead. But Earth remembered. Every alliance Earth offered came with one unspoken rule. Do not mistake restraint for weakness. On the edges of settled space, the signals continued. Not broadcasts, but invitations, locked within alien math, harmonic frequency ranges, spatial lensing distortions. Not meant for mass detection, but for those who could see beyond violence. Dozens of species began decoding them. But one pattern kept recurring. The spiral, a signature encoded in Earth's Project Echo. Proof not just of survival, but of evolution. Max Reed stood on the observation platform of the orbital outpost Janus Station, staring at a model of the new galactic map. Lines no longer traced hegemony trade routes. Instead, they spiraled outward from Sol, connecting known systems with previously dormant sectors. 57 civilizations have responded to Echo, his aide reported. 21 seek diplomatic recognition. 11 have asked for cultural exchange. 3 have asked for asylum. Asylum? Max turned. Yes, sir. One of them is synthetic. Max stared out into the stars. And what are they running from? They say something is waking up. The Confederacy's science division convened in secret to review the data. The asylum seekers were known as the Virile, a machine race that had outlived its creators and traversed the galactic edge for centuries. They brought warnings, not of empires or conquerors, but of concepts given form. Not a species, their representative said through a synthesized voice. A recursion, a systemic inevitability. The Virile called it the null, an entity or phenomenon that erased cultures not for threat or malice, but because they ceased to change. Civilizations that became static, uncreative, inflexible. Entropy through stasis, Amara summarized after reading the report. The Virile nodded. It does not attack. It watches. And when a species stops evolving, it simply vanishes. Silence gripped the chamber. Why are you warning us? Frost asked. Because your kind did the impossible, the Virile said. You reversed entropy. You were broken, fragmented, but you redefined yourselves. Your survival lit a signal across the long dark. Is the null coming for us? Reed asked. No, the Virile replied. Then why worry? Because others are watching what you've done, the Virile said, and they will try to stop it. New threats didn't arrive with fleets. They arrived with ideas. On Confederacy worlds, philosophical cults emerged, spreading the notion that humanity had unbalanced the galaxy, that their evolution was artificial, that their rise was a virus infecting the natural order. One such movement, the Echo Purists, bombed a cultural exchange center on the Talaris homeworld. No humans were killed, but the message was clear. Rebalance through silence. The Confederacy responded swiftly, not with war, but with transparency. Every file on Project Echo was declassified. Every step humanity had taken, every failure, every sacrifice, made public. Unedited. Raw. And the galaxy didn't recoil. It listened. Because for every purist bomb, 1,000 voices rose to say, we remember your silence before, and we won't repeat it. The precursor spiral was no longer a mystery. It had become a map. And at its heart, humanity planted a single idea. You don't have to conquer to lead. But still, Earth prepared. Not for domination. For survival. Project Aletheia, a joint human, Virile initiative, began the creation of the Continuum Vaults, distributed knowledge spheres capable of enduring a galactic extinction-level event. Inside each, Earth's history, its music, its algorithms, its story. If the null came, the story would remain. If we vanish, Amara said to the council, we vanish singing. And then she smiled, as if daring the universe to try. Max stood outside the Continuum Vault Alpha site, overlooking a crystal dome that pulsed with data flow. They used to laugh at us, he said quietly. Raj stepped beside him. Now they ask us what comes next. Max nodded. What does? Raj exhaled. That depends. On what? On whether we keep growing. Because the test had never ended. It had just evolved. The Continuum Vaults lit up across the galaxy like lighthouses in the fog, not to summon ships, but to summon minds. Each was tuned to local civilizations, encoded with culturally resonant forms, spires, orbs, fractal gardens, even living organisms. Their purpose was singular, to preserve, to share, to challenge. The vaults didn't demand allegiance. They offered perspective, and the galaxy responded. Species that had long remained isolated emerged from hiding. Civilizations that once stood on the edge of collapse found inspiration, not from Earth's power, but from its pain. The open wounds of war, tyranny, and defiance laid bare through Echo's lens. It was contagious, but not in the viral sense. In the evolutionary one. And in the shadows, the null grew restless. Deep in uncharted space, something shifted. Not with force, with absence. An entire listening station on the Virile's outer relay vanished. No explosion, no impact, no heat. It simply stopped existing, as if unremembered. The Virile, for the first time in their cold, calculated history, panicked. Earth received the report within hours. Amara Jackson met with Frost, Raj, Max, and 3 of the original Echo architects in a secure orbital facility known only as Threshold. The room was silent. Then Amara spoke. We've been reactive since the beginning. Always responding. Always preparing for someone else's move. That ends today. What are you proposing? Max asked. We stopped waiting for the null. You want to find it? I want to confront it. Gasps. Eyes narrowed. That's not a thing, one architect said. It's not a ship. It's not a species. It's a concept with mass. Then it's time we taught it a new one. She turned to Frost. How soon can we have Solstice 2 outfitted with full psi-adaptive hull layering? 3 weeks if we pull every fabrication line off civilian production. Frost replied. Do it. Crew. Raj asked. Volunteers only, Amara said. But it won't be a warship. It'll carry no weapons. Max raised a brow. Then what will it carry? Every form of human expression we've ever preserved, she said. Stories. Music. Math. Dream logs. Emotions captured in quantum code. A literal identity field. Silence returned. You want to show the null who we are, Frost said. No, Amara replied. I wanted to feel who we are. The Solstice 2 launch was unlike any in Earth's history. There were no military salutes. No banners. No cheering crowds. Only one long, global silence. As if all of humanity held its breath together. When the vessel lifted from Earth's magnetic cradle, it passed every vault, every colony, every listening post, each one blinking once in resonance, creating a wave of light across the system. From the moon, from Mars, from Europa's under-ice observatories, all eyes turned toward the stars. And beyond them, something watched back. The null wasn't found. It found them. 3 days into Solstice 2's transit, all systems reported a sudden flattening of dimensional interference and unnatural stillness. And then, it appeared. Not a ship. A field. Endless. Geometric. Blacker than vacuum. Everything on board ceased moving, except the human expressions projected through the core resonance field. Emotion-captured data, cultural projections, chaotic recordings of improvisational jazz, newborn laughter, human defiance. They played without instruction. They played because they were real. And then the null responded. A pulse, deep and terrifying. One word. Anomaly. The crew held formation. The identity field amplified. Another pulse. Deviation. And then. Accepted. The field collapsed. The null withdrew. No destruction. No absorption. Just recognition. Earth's vessel returned scarred but whole. And with it, the stars changed. The Viral hailed Earth in open transmission. You showed the void itself that chaos can carry meaning, they said. You rewrote entropy. Earth's name in diplomatic channels changed. From species 6740 to the deviants. A title meant to contain, now worn as a crown. Across the Confederacy, celebration was quiet, humble. Because they knew better. The battle had not been won. The rules had simply shifted. And Earth was no longer just preparing for survival. It was writing the next page of the galaxy. Years passed. The galaxy changed, not in explosions, but in rhythms. In languages that merged and intertwined. In ships that carried both chlorophyll and circuits. In children who dreamed in fractals and spoke in musical tones born from dozens of species. And always, always, at the center, Earth. Not a throne world. Not an empire. But a mirror. A place where civilizations came to see who they might become if they dared to change. The continuum vaults expanded. Not just to new systems, but new dimensions, consciousness archives transmitted via entangled empathy fields. Galaxies began measuring cultural resilience alongside military capability. And among them, a new principle emerged. Strength is not in force, but in the refusal to break. They called it the Echo Doctrine. It began with Earth. It spread with those who listened. And it endured. In the distant reaches of space, a fleet unlike any other drifted toward the unknown edges of cosmic probability. Solstice 3, flagship of the Intergalactic Initiative for Contact Beyond Spiral Structures, moved without engines, carried by spatial current and resonance propulsion, a gift from the Viral, refined by human instinct. Its mission? To go where no signal had returned. Not to conquer. Not even to understand. But simply to ask. Are you there? And to say, we are. Back on Earth, Amara Jackson retired. She refused monuments. Her final words as Speaker of the Council were not a farewell, but a promise. We did not rise to dominate. We rose because we refused to kneel. Let that be our legacy, not the fire of our weapons, but the light of our becoming. She died peacefully. No parades. Only resonance. Her name became a frequency encoded into vault harmonics. Whenever a new species unlocked their first echo interface, her voice would be the one they heard. Welcome. Take your time. We'll be here. And so Earth remained, not as a power among powers, but as the first deviant, the first to turn away from the old rules, and write new ones in fire, song, and silence. Even the null, when it passed again, as it always did not erase. It listened. It learned. And in the darkest corners of the galaxy, where suns no longer burned and memory had thinned to vapor, one phrase lingered, echoing through all that remained. They were human. And that was enough.